Hey everyone, welcome to today's lesson for the Launch Your Brand e-course. This video is called WordPress versus Squarespace, and what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the difference between each and take a look at the back end of each to see which one sounds like a better fit for you to create your website. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So the first one we're going to talk about is WordPress. Now, WordPress is a very, very powerful program. It's been an amazing innovation in web design over the past couple of years. What WordPress is it's an open source software. It's a free software that was developed that any person can download this program to a web host and create as many websites as they want for just the price of whatever the web hosting fee is. Now, this sounds great in theory, but there are a lot of things to get WordPress to work that you have to consider when you're weighing the options between Squarespace and WordPress. So there are some amazing benefits to WordPress with it being open software because it means that there's thousands of free plugins and free themes that you can use to create fairly professional websites for not very much money. Now, the downside to this is that WordPress can be very complicated. WordPress has a huge learning curve where it's not necessarily set up to be intuitive. It constantly needs to be updated or it creates a major security issue. There have been companies such as, what was the name of it? Optimized Press. That was a WordPress theme that you can install to have an amazing membership website. Well, they just found out in November that there was something majorly wrong with the Optimized Press setup where anybody could upload to a person's site, break in, change things to a website without their permission, and steal all their information. So part of the issue with having something like open source means that anybody can create plugins for it. So that means that some of the things that you might be using for your business may not be very safe. They might be susceptible to being attacked by cyber thieves or people or, virus attacks. There's all these issues that can happen. So I'm sure that you've heard this before of like keeping WordPress constantly updated and there being issues with when updates happen, plugins that you have break. It can require a programmer to come in and fix things as you're trying to modify themes. It's a very complicated thing. It requires most likely help. I tried to do a WordPress site. I spent a ton of money on it. And it totally blew up in my face and I wasted about 6 months of my life. So I decided to create this little Excel spreadsheet to show you the difference of what some of the costs could be for you with WordPress versus Squarespace, and also a membership e-commerce site versus just a basic blog with maybe some e-commerce capabilities. Because the people who are doing a membership site are going to have a little bit of different needs than somebody who's just going to have a blog and maybe sell something through a shopping cart. So we can take a look at this more in detail offline. I'm going to attach this Excel spreadsheet to the Ning Classroom so you can take a look at this, but I will go through some quick things here so you know what you're looking at. So on the left-hand side, we have what a membership website would look like with WordPress with some very common things. These were all things that I bought. I got web hosting through a company called Bluehost. I bought a couple of different themes to try out, which is very common when you're trying to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. I got Headway themes and Thesis. I ended up getting VaultPress, which is a really common plugin to make sure that the site is secure and backed up. I bought Wishlist, which is like a membership program that drips content to people. I had to hire a programmer to come in and fix some things that I totally accidentally broke because I was new at CSS and new at HTML. Then I also wanted to consider what it would cost to have a merchant that does reoccurring payments, and Moonclerk is a really popular service for that. And then, of course, I had to take a web design course to be able to learn all of this. And just like I'm creating a course for you all, I ended up having to take a course that I paid $795 for. I spent all this time trying to piece together all these plugins to get them to work together, to keep the site secure, all these things, to spend $1,593 only to find out that the site that I designed was not optimized for mobile devices. So I was going to lose a huge part of my audience because it wasn't optimized for web. It was going to cost me another $500 to $1,000 to have a programmer come in and fix it. And I was like, this is crazy. I can do a Squarespace site in a matter of like 2 or 3 hours. I've now wasted 6 months of my life. I couldn't launch my program. I had no control. It was the worst situation ever. That being said, at some point, I might actually have to go to a WordPress site as my business gets bigger to utilize some of the things, and I will have to hire a professional to help. Now, there's some people who are really good at WordPress. They get it. They've spent endless amounts of hours understanding it, and it can be a DIY sort of solution if you want to spend a million years learning everything. The reason why I've decided to focus on Squarespace for this program is because I think that it's really important to be able to get something up fast and professional and easy to use so that you have full control over everything. And I found some solutions for how to do this, even if you're going to have a membership sort of information product sort of thing. So if you look over here on the right-hand side, I show the Squarespace biz plan cost, how much it would cost to do something like Ning, which we're using for this program, and a reoccurring merchant. And so this shows the basic cost. So you can see here, for me, to do a Squarespace site would have cost me a total of $660 for the first year. Then it goes up quite a bit to $1,152 for every year after that. And the reason why I've put this in is because I've added in the Moonclerk fees going up, where I'd be expecting to make, like, let's say $15,000, $20,000 a month. The Moonclerk monthly fees go way up, and that's why this is so much more. So if we take this out of the equation, let's say that I find a free reoccurring payment thing, then these numbers sort of change down to something more comparable, where it's $552 a month. So this is just a choice that I would make if I wanted to have this as a reoccurring sort of payment. It's like a plugin that you can plug into Stripe, which is the merchant for Squarespace. So over here on the right-hand side, this looks at what a basic sort of e-commerce website would be for WordPress versus Squarespace. And this is it could be a little bit counterintuitive. We could actually turn this into a $100 theme. Let's say that you were only going to do a $100 theme instead of trying 2 different themes like I did. But you would definitely want to have something to back up the site, and you would definitely have to pay for web hosting fee no matter what. So we're looking at about $493 versus Squarespace. That would be $192 for the first and second year for a very basic website. So as you can see here, comparing apples and oranges, WordPress actually ends up being more expensive. The benefit, though, is that if you plan on having a bunch of different websites, WordPress might be the way to go, because once you've set it up, if you get some of the web developer theme prices for Headway or Thesis or some other ones, then this price actually ends up going up a little bit, but then you can create as many websites as you want. So it really just depends on what your needs are. And again, for this course, I was like, okay, we're going to do Squarespace because we can get things up super quick. And I created a list of issues and benefits for both so that you can make a really good, accurate decision. And I also had received an email from a previous beta tester that said, hey, Jenna, I was just finishing up my 2013 tax prep tonight, and I wanted to let you know that before finding Launch Your Brand, I spent a whopping total of $1,221 this year on a WordPress site with themes, plugins, miscellaneous development that I couldn't do myself, random graphic design projects I had to hire out because I didn't have Photoshop and Illustrator skills to do it myself, and a sampling of a DIY branding course, ebooks. While I was trying to figure out what I was doing, I had no intention of spending that much time when I started out, but it started adding up, one little project or fix at a time. So here she spent $1,221. I spent almost $1,600. I didn't get a site out of it. She didn't get a site out of it. I knew that I was on to something with doing this through Squarespace when I got this email. So she said, I know you had a similar WordPress experience, but I just wanted to let you know what the numbers are no joke, and what you're offering is very valuable in this program. Feel free to use my example wherever you want, but don't use my real name because I'm a little embarrassed about the money that I spent trying to launch my brand this year. Well, don't worry, former beta tester, I feel exactly the same way, and I am a little bit ashamed too. However, I'm sharing my shame with you because I'm turning this into a very positive thing here. So, other quick things to note. with WordPress, some of the benefits are that you own your files, you own the site design when you purchase a theme. You don't have to worry about anybody going out of business for things to work. With Squarespace, since it's a third-party program, when you're using their templates to create your design, you can't really take that template design with you. You can take all your graphic files, you can take all your content, but you can't take their actual site design with you if you ever decide to leave. If they go out of business, this could also be an issue. However, I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. There are some tiny graphic limitations that might be important to you that may not work out. Like, for example, you can't have customized buttons in Squarespace. They have to be text-based. They can't be all cool with, you know, quirky little, or they can't be with artsy little frames or anything. And there are little bugs that come up. But what I love so much about Squarespace is that it's so easy, it's so intuitive, and it integrates perfectly with a bunch of different social media programs. It's got like just really, really great things that happen. But if I ever have a problem, I have 24-hour tech support. I have people making sure that the security on the site is up to date at all times. So I don't have to worry about updating my WordPress site to make sure that hackers aren't going to get into it. I can get a website up with just my Photoshop and Illustrator skills without having to use HTML or CSS. Now I'm going to teach you guys a tiny little bit of CSS to give just the tiniest tweaks to make the site exactly how you want it. But for the most part, it's going to take us like 15 minutes to 30 minutes to talk about that. Whereas with WordPress, it required this huge long course to figure it all out. You have beautiful templates to pick from, and you're going to see that it's really, really, really intuitive for most people. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be problems, doesn't mean that there won't be quirks, but this is the reason why I've chosen to focus on Squarespace for this portion of the course. So to give you an idea of what the different backends look like, just so you can get an even further idea here, is that this is what a WordPress background of the site looks like. So you're working with developing content by adding posts to the page. And so here's like a bunch of blog posts that I put. You hit add new, you add a blog post, and so on and so forth. Where you start to change what the appearance looks like is based off of what themes you have uploaded. So as you can see here, I'm using Thesis, which I had all the problems with it not being mobile. I have other themes that I've put in here that I've tried and wasn't able to work with very easily. So as you can see here, it's coordinated in kind of a complicated way. There's a million plugins that I had to put in to get it to do things for like maintenance, for changing certain parts of the web design. I had to upload this thing called OpenHook to be able to even figure out what I was changing and where I was changing it in the design. I had to have a special forms plugin that is complicated. So then we have the background or the back end of the site for Squarespace. And as you can see, it's a lot cleaner. The ability to add pages, take pages away is pretty easy. And, you know, if I want to move something around, I can literally just pick it up and drag it to some other place on the background, which is a really nice drag and drop sort of feature. Now, that's not to say that with the Headway themes thing, you wouldn't get sort of a similar drop and drag sort of thing. But I think that this is so much more integrated with the ability to click on this little button right here. You can add text, you can add a quote, you can plug in a video with a custom video sort of graphic on it. You can embed codes from other sites. So if you need to plug in a HTML code from a mail service that you have or something that may not be supported by Squarespace directly, you can embed things very easily. You can add products to any page. You're not stuck to just doing them on product pages. You can put in Amazon items. You can have ways for people to donate. You can create customizable forms and newsletter opt-ins and maps on like Google Maps sort of thing. You can add in customized code. If you have a restaurant, you can do a menu. There's ways to have calendars with events on them. You could add spaces and lines to break things up in the page a little bit differently. Then you have the ability to create really easy links on your site by creating buttons to go to certain parts, or creating links between other pages on the site, or even downloadable things. You can have summaries of your blog on the front of the page, which is what is happening here, so that when I go over to the blog page, I can create a new entry and automatically have a little preview pop up on the front page. And so there's all these amazing options here. You can integrate social media really easily. I have this like fun little plugin where actually all of my Instagram pictures are automatically playing. So they just have taken a very complicated thing and have made it much easier. And so we're going to get really deep into all the different features of Squarespace on Friday. But I wanted to give you this brief little overview of what the backend looks like. I mean, like, look over here. If you want to add a page, you literally hit add a page, or you can add a product or add a folder, which is a drop-down menu. You can come in here and start to play. If you would like, you just go to squarespace.com and click get started, choose a template and go. And this will give you a starting ground, but just to show you how easy it is to change the design here. If I then go to the front end of the site, it's going to ask me if I want to save changes, but I'm going to hit discard because I don't. As you can see here on the front end of the site, if I want to be able to change the aesthetic of this, all I have to do is click on the little paintbrush, and it's going to open up a whole new window of how to change colors, change the background image. I can change the canvas background color. I can change opacity with this little slider right here. So you can see here that if I wanted to allow the background of the site to come through, I have that capability, which is really neat. So you end up not only using Squarespace for laying things out for your website, but you can actually do a lot of designing things on here in terms of color, and it automatically formats things into columns so everything lines up properly. You don't have to worry about things randomly being placed all over the page. This is going to give you an idea of where you're going to be able to upload a background image. Now, if you're in a template that doesn't have this option, it might be a limitation of that particular template. So if it's important to you to have a background image, you want to make sure that the template that you're using has that. And you can change typography. There's like 1,000,001 different fonts that they have in here that you can use. And you can't really import fonts into here, but you can import transparent PNGs to do sort of custom headers like I've done here. So it's great to have really cool fonts to be used for dynamic text like this. For example, if I wanted to, this sort of text is going to come up in a search engine optimization or search engine search because it's actually text that a search engine can see. But some of these that wouldn't be able to. But what's kind of neat about it is that you can still make your site look very custom with having these sort of custom headers. So this should give you just a brief overview of the difference between WordPress and Squarespace, and I hope that it's going to give you the enough information to make a great decision. And so I look forward to the next couple of videos that we're having where we're going to talk about actually how to come up with a design in Illustrator and transfer it into Squarespace.